Now that we know Shanks is a celestial dragon, we need to discuss about the idea of evil Shanks. Now, this is a review of a theory, something that my channel name suggests that I'm sometimes doing around here. I'm gonna put the theory of evil Shanks into review to see how much of evidence and proof is behind the theory and how likely it is to make sense. And subscribe right now if you haven't, because you would be too amazed to do this while I'm explaining this amazing theory. So first of all, if we're gonna talk about the idea of evil Shanks, the rat, the snitch, or something like that, we need to discuss it right at the day that Roger was executed, and not a second before that. I absolutely don't believe in the idea of inherent evil, meaning somebody's born to be evil. I do not support this idea, and I do not support any writer who suggests this idea. And thanks God that Goda is one of the good guys, and he never suggested that. Evil is a matter of environment and your uprising. Every celestial dragon was born with this idea that we are superior to everybody else. And every single piece of evidence they could have found ever since the day were one suggested that this idea is true. And I would argue if every single one of us good guys were in their shoes, eventually we wouldn't act like them. Because again, evil is a matter of environment and not something inherent. So Shanks, while born as a celestial dragon, raised under the banner and love and compassion of some of the best pirates that this world has ever seen, Roger Pirates and all of their crew members. They raised Shanks and Buggy as their child. He was showered in their love, and I do not believe that during that time he showed any sign of evil. But in the day that Roger died, okay, you see, the greatest tragedy opened us to biggest change. Roger died, Shanks lost his family, his crew, everything that he ever had. In that moment, we can start talking about evil Shanks. Now we should know for a fact that as of now, Shanks and Garling have talked to each other on many occasions. Okay, if Shanks can go to mariejois and talk to Gorosei, the idea of Shanks never meeting and talking to Garling, his own father, who is even less important than elders, is a critical sign of a mental health issue, because of course they've talked so far. And odds are, as soon as Shanks was released from the shadow of Goldie Roger, Garling stepped in and he started a connection between himself and his proud son. And there are many signs that suggest Garling actually and actively supported his son throughout his pirate journey. And it makes the idea of evil Shanks more likely since he received support from his father. Let me explain what I'm talking about. In the film Red, we saw that even a teenage Shanks had a legendary pirate like Ben Beckman and a full crew and a ship and a lot of treasures for himself. He stood up on his feet way too quickly. I mean, generally when you lose everything that you have, it's gonna take you a while to stand on your feet. But Shanks did that in a matter of a very few short years. How? And come to think of it, every person who were in touch with Roger died after Roger's execution. Look at Tom. He died simply for helping Roger. Shanks, a teenage boy who is not even significantly strong back then, survived Grand Line, created a crew, became a captain without anybody hunting him down. Buggy, for example, ran away. Nobody noticed him. Shanks was in there, in the action, and nobody even touched him. Why? Why would you just leave one of the Roger pirates who could very well know the secret of God Valley from the perspective of the world government? They had no idea. Why would you let this boy to be free so he can become a big shot pirate? Somebody protected Shanks from Marine. And of course the man who replaced Roger was Saint Figurant Garling. Now some people might say, since Garling is very obviously a very evil person, there is no argument behind him showing love to his son because he's generally a very evil person. But, as I explained, celestial dragons are evil because they believe in their pure blood. They believe that we are superior to everybody else. So the idea of Garling caring about his son, another pure blood god, makes perfect sense. because they care about their bloodline. Garling is not just racist, he is among the most racist character we have ever seen. This means he has the maximum amount of brute tyranny upon others while having the highest level of compassion through us. This is how racism works. You hate the others and you love us. And an extreme racist should extremely care about his own people. Now, I don't know if Shanks was the person who approached him or he was the person who approached Shanks, but we know that this is very likely to have happened soon after the death of Roger. And yes, I can safely judge the character of Garling and this type of personality based on 2 panels. This is not because I am a smart reader. This is because Oda is an amazing storyteller. To prove that even more, in Film Red, Gorosei, people who've been around for 900 years and they are in fact superiors of Garling. When they realize Uta is about to destroy the world, they still had some doubt about going after a figureland. They said, okay, should we go after her while she is a figureland? They didn't say Shanks' daughter, they said a figureland. In that moment, they hesitated to go after Uta because she was a figureland. So it makes perfect sense, objective sense, that they truly fear about how much Garling, and not Shanks, Garling, care about his own bloodline. Uta is somebody that Garling never seen and apparently just recently understood she exists. But Gorosei fear what would be the reaction of Garling if they go after Uta, somebody that they assume is the actual biological granddaughter of Garling. Garling objectively and evidently deeply cares about his own bloodline. Now let's talk about point of view of Shanks, because 25 years ago, Shanks, to the maximum surprise of Buggy, refused to be the Pirate King. He had no intention of going after One Piece. This just left a mental scar on Buggy because he, and apparently the rest of the crew as far as we can say, genuinely believed that Shanks can be the next Pirate King. But somehow, for no apparent reason, Shanks was like, nah, I don't want it. Can anybody explain why? Perhaps I can. And let's not forget, Shanks' bounty is not even high. I'm talking about the bounty of Shanks like around 12 years ago when he was just an established great pirate and not a Yonko. But his bounty was like barely 1 billion. Even 12 years ago, Shanks was Shanks. He was very strong. He was part of Roger Pirates. He had a titanic crew behind him. He stole Nika devil food. He had a lot of information. He had countless battles. And Whitebeard himself said that you had a legendary duel. And his battle with Mihawk shook the very grand line. And by the end, he still had just 1 billion berry bounty. This bounty is significantly low, and probably odds are Garling had the bounty of Shanks reduced to a lower number so he can protect the life of his son. I'm not saying that Shanks needed this type of protection, but even a very evil person can be a caring parent. Because if Whitebeard is saying, okay, you and Mihawk, what you did, you do it, was just comparable to the legends of my day. If Whitebeard is approving you like that, your bounty is probably is bigger than Jack. A legendary writer like Oda should know better than all of us than just a pure good or a pure bad person is not really a good character. A good character needs to walk in the gray area. For example, Garp is an absolutely titanic, great character. He cares about his family, he cares about his duty, but he chooses duty over his family. He is a good person who sometimes did something evil. He is a good person who defended Celestial Dragon. A good person can do bad things, and a bad person should be able to do good things. So Garling, generally being one of the worst characters in the story of One Piece and one of the most racist one, can be able to be a good father. And Shanks very well implied this is not a one-way trade. Shanks showed that he can care about something more than being a Pirate King. He refused to go after the Pirate King title. He started a coup, he started the empire, he became the most established pirate as we speak in the story. And up to like few weeks ago, he had no intention of going after One Piece. A man like Shanks seems like a drunk fool, but we all know he had an intention, he had a plan. And that plan wasn't about following Roger. So what was it? One might say that Shanks was repaying world government for helping him become an established pirate. And in return, he kept the balance. You might know that the balance of One Piece world is in favor for world government. As long as world government can point finger to pirates and say, okay, if we go, okay, we are bad guys. We have celestial dragons. Everybody know we are scum. But if we go, those pirates are even worse than us. If we go, Kaido, Shiki, Zebek, and these merciless pirates will come and kill you all without any reason. I would say what Kaido did to people of Wano, the maximum level of tyranny, and world government generally don't do that. Celestial dragons would, but world government won't. So keeping the balance, keeping those pirates in line, keeping those pirates active and alive is in favor of not Moraine, but the world government. And Shanks, in the meeting with Whitebeard, in stopping Kaido, stopping the war, meeting with Gorosei, always try to keep the balance. And everybody who try to keep the balance, in one way or another, are helping the world government. So perhaps Shanks is the secret agent of the world government. Now, let's give a different angle to this entire argument by bringing up Holy Knights, a group that is being led by Saint Figureland Garling, a group of 9 very almighty people who might be even more serious of a danger to anybody who want to oppose world government, even Marine. And we have one group of 9 people in the story of One Piece who can be stronger than entire Marine, and they are in the back of the story. It is very extremely hard for any writer, even Oda himself, to introduce 9 brand new characters as important figures at the final saga of One Piece, then reintroduce the old characters with a different face. Of course, I am talking about the possibility of Karen's red hair pirates being celestial dragon servants under the name of a Holy Knights. Or Shanks himself can be a part of it. Or there is another twist, perhaps. After Roger died, Shanks joined the organization of Holy Knights. And there, he met his father and Mihawk. 2 of them worked under Garling for a matter of time, and then they got separated. Mihawk became the naval hunter and pursued to be the world's strongest swordsman. Shanks became a person who was kind of in the middle, kind of serving the pirates, kind of serving the world government. And this could be a legendary backstory behind the reason of their legendary duel, because both of them serving under Holy Knights, but having some ideological problem and then fighting it out and become friends again. It's something that you could expect from One Piece and Oda. The idea of an evil Shanks can be twisted, and if at the end of the day, Luffy and Zoro fight against Shanks and Mihawk, I would say this is a far more emotional connected battle than Luffy fighting Im-sama, because I always have some problem with Im-sama. Im-sama is not the direct enemy of Luffy. Im-sama doesn't consider Luffy, Roger, Zebek, or any D member from this generation to be a worthy opponent. Im-sama actual enemy is Nika and Joy Boy. Im-sama, whether if he's a he or she's a she, is not the direct enemy of Luffy. There is no connection between Im-sama and Luffy. There is a stronger connection between Im-sama and Nika. The idea that Luffy fight Shanks and Zoro fight Mihawk as their final opponent in the final saga makes a better and more dramatic storytelling, and that's always a reason that I like the idea of evil Shanks. But this is a review, so we need to see the other side and why Shanks cannot be evil. For the anti-evil Shanks debate, or good Shanks debate, we firstly can say that Shanks is genuinely a good person. We can see that he sacrificed an arm for Luffy. He's always loving, caring. A lot of people love him. He's protecting countless weak pirates under his flag. He specifically chose people who cannot defend themselves as underling. He is a good person. Turning this type of person to evil, or at least antagonist, is not something that writers generally want to do. And so many people love Shanks, and making him an antagonist, if not evil, gonna create so many different emotions. I don't think One Piece community can handle this if it actually happened. We are all talking about the theory, but if it actually happened, all of the chaos in the community is unimaginable, because this is a very risky twist. Shanks is a good person. And number 2, Shanks is one of the few pirates, perhaps he and Luffy, are the only pirates who actually went against world government. Shanks is the pirate who stole Sun God's Nika devil food when he was under the possession of CP9. Shanks stole that devil food, didn't eat it, give it to Luffy, sacrificed an arm for him, and just made Luffy ready to be a pirate. This is not the behavior of somebody who's serving underworld government. The chain of events that Shanks created will eventually dethrone Im-sama from his reign of terror. Shanks caused that by stealing that devil food and giving it to Luffy and betting his life on Luffy. This is not something that we can expect from an antagonist if that antagonist is smart on any level. Shanks, as an antagonist, should be smarter to not invest all of his entity on Luffy, but he did. And that's a reason I believe maybe the theory is not the best. On the side note, I have to say, some people say that Shanks feared the idea of fighting Kaido, and that's the reason now that Kaido and Big Mom are defeated, he want to go and become the Pirate King. This is a very wrong argument because Whitebeard refused to go to war against Kaido to avenge the death of his brother, Odin, because the casualties could have been high. Shanks, on the other hand, during the Battle of Marineford, didn't even hesitate to go and stop Kaido, and we know he had never hesitated to have a clash with Whitebeard. Shanks, very obviously, thanks to his own might and the might of his legendary crew, do not fear any of the Yonko. He's going now after the Laugh-Tail because Luffy is going after the Laugh-Tail, and Luffy is finally awoke the power of Nika, the power that Shanks gave it to him. And at number 3, I believe the idea of evil Shanks cannot happen because of what I just said at the beginning of this video, that being evil and being good is not a matter of blood, it's a matter of environment and your uprising. The idea behind One Piece, the core idea behind the story of One Piece, is not a person who wants to be the king of pirates. That's not One Piece. The actual story of One Piece, the actual moral of the story, is that the family we find for each other means way more than the family we are born into. And on many occasions, we are actually defying our own real family. Garp is defying the way of D-Clan by serving underworld government. Dragon is defying his father by being the leader of a revolutionary army. And Luffy is defying both of them by being a pirate. You see, this idea is going on and on that our family, what we actually belong, our root is in our uprising. The idea that Roger failed to convince Shanks that you are not a celestial dragon, you are a free pirate. You are a good person, you are somebody who's gonna copy me and not your sick, twisted father. That is the idea that I do not believe won't happen. Roger did a solid job on raising Shanks, and Shanks being evil is an insult to Roger. So instead of saying Shanks is a rat or Roger is a loser, let's come to a middle ground. Ignoring Im-sama, I have Shanks as the strongest living character in One Piece with a possible chance of surpassing Roger. But if I have to choose, I have him as a politician, as a diplomat, than a fighter. So for this type of character, one very obvious side is not usually a good idea. The idea of a double agent maybe sounds better and more reasonable. Remember when Roger came back from Laugh-Tail, the first thing he did was talking to Shanks, and that moment, I would dare say, is one of the most defining moments in the life of Shanks. It's not my claim, the voice actor of Shanks actually said that, the voice actor of young Shanks, in fact. In that moment, Shanks probably received his next goal in life, something so heartbreaking that he started crying. Shanks was raised by Roger, marked by Roger, and is following Roger way. But maybe for ensuring that the next Joy Boy will free the world from world government, Shanks knew his lineage, his dark bloodline. Shanks had the opportunity of using his influence and blood in favor of the world, so one day he can have the right Joy Boy turn against world government. The idea of evil Shanks is very great. That's one of the reasons I instantly love Garling, because Garling is the evil Shanks that I wanted to get, and I believe I get it. But in the following arcs of One Piece, Oda will do his best to fool all of us, to make all of us believe in more than few ways that Shanks is evil. But I'm telling you now, even if Shanks went Griffiths on all the Straw Hats and did the most gruesome crimes, don't worry. Shanks is just playing a role. Shanks is never a celestial dragon. Kuzan is never a pirate. I do not care what kind of heinous crime they will commit later on in the story. Remember in Harry Potter when Professor Snape killed Dumbledore? At that point we were all like, okay, Snape is evil. He killed the best guy ever and he turned against all the values, but he was the best guy ever at the same time. Shanks is not a celestial dragon in blood. It's not in his nature. Roger made sure that never happened. This, narratively speaking, makes far more sense to me than Shanks ignoring all the teaching and value of Roger and piracy and just act and behave like a secret celestial dragon he's playing the game of pirates. It doesn't really make sense for such an important character that we know is almost the actual alter ego of Oda in the story. I mean, as I said, we say it with love and respect that Oda is a twisted, I don't want to say the F word, but he's a twisted man. But having his alter ego being an evil person, it's not gonna happen. So don't worry and do not allow Oda trick you. The idea of evil Shanks will get stronger as we go, but do not get fooled. This is just an act for one very heartbreaking twist. And Shanks may pay the price of fooling the both side by his death. But again, Kaido was right about this thing, that a great death is actually good for the character. The idea of Whitebeard dying in his bed might be comforting, but the idea of him dying standing up is far better storytelling. And Shanks, one day, probably will pay this price. But doesn't matter what happened. I do not, after what happened, after he's confirmed to be a celestial dragon, I don't believe that he's gonna follow the way of his father. As almost no son in One Piece followed the way of his father. The only exception in my mind being Usopp. I hoped you enjoyed this kind of review, kind of talking about theory. I hope what I said makes sense to you. You recently hit 3,000, and I know we can do much more. I thanks to all of the original gang members, these first 3,000 crew members, but let's aim for 100 because I know we can get there very soon. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I see you all at Laugh Tale.